She was just a mechanic, often overlooked and struggling to keep her small garage open. When a man's truck broke down outside her shop, she fixed it and refused to take a single dollar. But what she thought was a simple act of kindness would soon change her life. Weeks later, a massive flatbed trailer pulled into her lot, and what it carried made everyone stop and stare. What was inside? And who really was the man she helped? Janelle wiped her hands on a grease-stained rag, glancing up at the sound of coughing metal. A battered old truck wheezed its way into the lot of her tiny auto garage, barely making it to the edge before coming to a smoking stop. A tall, older man stepped out, frustrated but polite. "Engine cut out halfway to town," he said quietly. "I do not know what happened." Janelle gave him a nod and gestured to the open bay. "Let me take a look. You're lucky you made it this far." He watched as she moved with confidence, sleeves rolled up, eyes sharp. In 20 minutes, she had diagnosed the problem: a worn-out belt and a clogged fuel line. Nothing too serious. She fixed it on the spot. When the man reached for his wallet, Janelle held up her hand. "Do not worry about it. It was a small fix. Just glad you're safe." The man blinked. "No charge?" "None," she smiled. "Everyone gets stuck sometimes. Someone helped me once, just passing it on." He stared at her like he wanted to say something more, but instead nodded slowly, his eyes lingering on her name patch. "Janelle. Thank you." She watched his truck pull away, thinking little of it. Just another good deed in a life where kindness was rare, especially for someone like her. What she did not know was that the man had not come by accident, and he would not forget her. Weeks passed, bills stacked up, business was slow, and Janelle had begun to wonder how long she could keep the doors open. Every morning she rolled up that garage door and hoped for just one more customer, one more miracle. And then one morning she heard a low rumble outside. Not a broken engine this time, something heavier, something big. She stepped outside and froze. A massive white flatbed trailer was pulling into her lot. On it was something wrapped in a silver tarp, polished, secured, and gleaming in the sunlight. The driver hopped out and handed her a sealed envelope. "Delivery for Janelle Davis from a Mr. Collins." She stared at him confused. "I do not know any Mr. Collins." The driver smiled. "He said you'd remember him." Heart pounding, Janelle opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "Some kindness costs nothing, but to me, yours was priceless. This is not a payment. It is a thank you. J. Collins." She looked up at the trailer, breath catching in her throat. Then the tarp was pulled away, and what was underneath made her knees go weak. Janelle's fingers trembled as the tarp slid off the flatbed. What lay beneath was not a gift. It was a dream. Something she never imagined she would touch, let alone own. There sat a brand new top-of-the-line diagnostic machine, still in plastic, worth more than her entire garage. And beside it, a fully stocked set of high-end mechanic tools, polished, untouched, gleaming in the light. But that wasn't all. The driver handed her one more envelope. Inside, a folded document and a key. She opened it slowly. Her eyes scanned the paper, then widened in disbelief. A property deed. Signed. Transferred. Official. It read, "Transfer of ownership to Janelle Davis. Full rights to the adjacent auto yard and garage space effective immediately." Janelle staggered back, clutching the envelope like it was made of glass. She whispered, "This has to be a mistake. This is too much." The delivery driver shook his head. "Mr. Collins said you earned every inch of it." But she barely remembered his name. She only remembered the truck, the man's tired eyes, the way he had stared at her as if seeing something no one else ever did. For years, Janelle had worked twice as hard to be taken seriously. A black woman in a male-dominated trade, running a garage she had built from the ground up with her father, who passed before he could see it thrive. Most customers doubted her. Some even laughed at her. But not that man. She thought back to his quiet gratitude, and something inside her stirred. The very next day, Janelle went to work rebuilding her garage. Not just for herself, but for every kid who had ever been told they weren't good enough. She put up a new sign, Davis and Daughters Garage, built on kindness, open to all. People started showing up. First a few, then dozens. The news had spread fast, not just about the gift, but how she got it. They weren't coming because of the machines. They came for her story. A woman who gave freely. A woman who chose kindness when she could have chosen profit. And someone powerful had noticed. That week, a black SUV pulled into her lot. The man who stepped out wore a crisp suit, a familiar smile, and eyes that looked exactly like the stranger she helped. He walked straight towards her and said, "May I reintroduce myself? Jonathan Collins, CEO of Titan Freight. The truck you fixed, it was mine, but I didn't want to come to you as a rich man. I wanted to see who you really are." Janelle blinked, stunned. "You tested me?" "No, I was hoping. I needed to believe there were still people in this world who did the right thing even when no one's watching. You proved that." Then he reached into his pocket and handed her a gold-embossed business card. "I'm expanding across the region. I want you to lead our new repair division. Your own branch. Full salary, full team. But only if your name is on the door." She stared at the card. Her eyes began to fill with tears. Her life had just changed. But she had one question first. "Why me?" Jonathan smiled. "Because you reminded me of my mother. She fixed engines too, but no one ever thanked her." Janelle stood frozen, staring at the business card in her hand. Her mind was racing. A CEO? A new branch? Her name on the door? It was everything she had dreamed of, and more. But beneath the thrill, a quiet storm of doubt began to build. She had worked her whole life to earn respect in this field, only to be overlooked again and again. Why now? Why her? As if sensing her hesitation, Jonathan Collins said gently, "You do not have to answer now, but I hope you do not let fear stop you." That night, Janelle sat in the empty garage her father once built with his bare hands. She ran her fingers along the old workbench, still stained from decades of oil and sweat. "You always said kindness would come back one day, Daddy, but I never thought it would come like this." The next morning, she walked into the bank to finalize the paperwork for the adjoining property. But when she handed the clerk the deed Collins had given her, the woman behind the counter glanced up, her smile suddenly vanishing. "I need to speak to my supervisor," the woman said coldly. Janelle stood there, confused, as the woman disappeared into the back. A few minutes later, a man in a stiff gray suit approached. "Miss Davis, I'm afraid there has been a delay in validating this transfer. We need to investigate the legitimacy of the deed." Janelle's stomach turned. What do you mean? It is signed, certified." "We cannot just hand over property because someone gave it to you," he said flatly. "There are protocols." The way he said, "someone gave it to you," twisted in her chest like a knife. As if it was impossible she could earn something this valuable. She left the bank burning with embarrassment. Outside, people who had heard her story were already congratulating her, clapping her on the back, smiling. But Janelle just nodded, silently, her confidence shaking. Later that afternoon, she walked back into her garage and froze. Waiting inside was Jonathan Collins. "I heard what happened at the bank. I'm sorry. I should have expected it." Janelle tried to hold it together, but the pain cracked through her voice. "They looked at me like I was a fraud, like someone like me could never own something like that." Jonathan nodded slowly. "That is why I came today, not as a CEO, but as a son." He reached into his coat and pulled out a worn photo. In it, a woman stood in front of a garage, her arms folded, grease on her shirt, a soft smile on her lips. "My mother. She fixed trucks just like you. People disrespected her,
ignored her. Until the day she died, she never got the recognition she deserved. He handed Janelle the photo. "She would have loved you, and I refuse to let history repeat itself." Then he pulled out another document that made Janelle gasp. "I bought the land myself this morning, under my name, but this is the signed transfer to you, and we will walk into that bank together." The next day, when they returned to the bank, Janelle did not walk in alone. She walked in beside one of the most powerful CEOs in the state, the same man who once broke down outside her garage and now refused to be disrespected again. Every head turned, every voice hushed, and this time the manager stood up when she approached, hands shaking slightly, voice suddenly polite. "Ms. Davis, your property transfer has been approved. Congratulations." But Janelle just smiled, calm and clear. "Thank you, but I did not need his money. I needed you to see me." Janelle walked out of that bank taller than she had ever stood. The sun felt warmer on her skin. The papers in her hand were more than legal documents. They were proof that her kindness had not gone unnoticed. Proof that a woman like her could own, lead, and rise. But more than anything, they were proof that her father had been right, that good people still existed, and that integrity, even in a broken world, still had power. Within days, the story of Janelle Davis, the mechanic who refused a rich man's money and changed her entire life because of it, spread like wildfire. Reporters showed up. Customers lined up outside her newly expanded garage, and local schools began calling her in to speak to students about her journey. But Janelle never let it go to her head. Instead, she used the attention to build something bigger than success. She built a movement. She launched a program called Hands That Heal, a nonprofit where young girls, especially those from underserved communities, could learn auto repair, welding, and mechanics. She offered free workshops, mentorships, and paid internships. Because she knew what it was like to walk into a room and be doubted before she even spoke. And now, she was the one holding the door open. A few months later, Jonathan Collins returned to her garage, this time not in a truck or with a gift. He came with a request. "I want to name our new regional repair division after your father. The man who raised someone like you deserves to be remembered." Janelle's hand went to her chest, where she still wore her father's old name tag beneath her uniform. Tears welled in her eyes. "He never asked for anything, just wanted me to be better than he ever had the chance to be." Jonathan smiled. "You already are." That evening at the ribbon cutting of the new facility, reporters stood shoulder to shoulder as a gleaming sign was unveiled. The Frank Davis Center for Mechanical Innovation, in honor of a father's hands and the daughter's heart. The crowd erupted in applause. Janelle stood at the podium, her voice shaking but strong. "I was never supposed to be seen. Not in this industry, not in this town, not as a woman, not as a black business owner, and certainly not as someone who could lead a division like this." She looked up, straight into the cameras. "But I was never waiting for permission. I was waiting for a moment. And that moment came, when a stranger's truck broke down outside my garage, and I chose kindness over profit." She paused. "And when you do what is right, even when no one is watching, someone always is." That night, after the lights went down and the last guest left, Janelle returned to her original garage. She ran her fingers along the workbench again, but this time she smiled, because she was no longer alone. Outside, parked beneath the stars, was the old truck she once fixed for free, still running strong, still reminding her where it all began. And in her heart was a quiet truth. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can echo through generations. And sometimes it only takes one woman to remind the world what real power looks like.